What a weekend for Americans abroad. Goals from Haji Wright, who had 2. Alex Zendejas, Christian Pulisic, Serginho Dest, John Brooks, who had a goal and a red card. Paxton Aronson as well. Assist for Weston McKennie, who had a couple. Zendejas, who was a big contributor in America's big win over Tigres. Ari Herc. And Joe Scally, who had an assist in a crazy 3-3 draw between his Gladbach and Cologne. All right, Herc, as has been often the case of late here on Futbol Americas, there are tons of Americans to choose from when it comes to who had the best weekend abroad. Who gets your vote?
Haji Wright, come on down. Listen, this is now 13 goals, 6 assists, for Haji Wright in the championship, and I don't think he's getting the credit he deserves. There was a brace this weekend. He was playing a different position early on in the season, more as a winger, now contributing in a central position, getting goals however they come, off of his head, in behind, penalty kicks. He seems to be back to the Haji of old, the Haji we've seen in different places like Turkey, in different moments of the championship. He's being that striker again, and let's not forget, man, I sometimes think fans unjustly have ruled Haji out. He is still the only 9 that I can recall since Brian McBride to score a goal in a World Cup. Traditional 9, real 9, because we've seen Clint Dempsey do it. You know, we've seen other guys who have played part-time, Landon Donovan, but Brian McBride, traditional 9, that's the last time you had a center forward for the U.S. men's national team score a goal if it's not Haji Wright. So we got to give this guy his credit. He's got some equity there too.
Yeah, we got to give him credit, right? They always say the championship, hard league to adapt to, and he actually did have some struggles. There was some real concern early on. He might not be the guy. As you mentioned, he's got 13 goals in league play. He's got 14 across all competitions. And Coventry, with Wright doing a lot of the damage, is having a hell of a run in the FA Cup. So his team is having a good season. He's having a good season. The question is, Herc, what does it mean for his national team chances? Because we got the CONCACAF Nations League coming up. There's a lot of competition for that number 9 spot. Do you see Greg Berhalter calling him in?
I don't, and I don't think that's anything on Haji Wright. Haji is a player that I'm very high on. He's got a certain skill set that we don't see in many players. The size, the speed, the ability to finish right foot, left foot, head, everything like that. And he also has equity. But something tells me that right now the 3 in Greg's mind are Ricardo Pepi, Josh Sargent, and Folarin Balogun, any order you would like. But those are the 3 in his mind. And it's a little unfair. It's unfair because this man has done it consistently, and also for Greg Berhalter, but he's also got a bit of history with Greg Berhalter. Do you not remember the game before the World Cup, one of his first 2 appearances with the U.S. men's national team, where Greg Berhalter, and I quote, had this to say after a 45-minute cameo where he was playing in a mud pit, if you recall. It's not nice when players don't capitalize on an opportunity. It's not nice for the coach. It's not nice for the players. It's not nice for the team. He's never criticized another player in the U.S. men's national team setup. Not publicly. He did with Haji Wright. And now I'm not saying that means anything. I'm just saying he doesn't have the benefit of the doubt like other players. And right now, those other players ahead of him, they're hot, or they've got a little bit more equity built in with Greg Berhalter. I don't think it happens.
Let me help you solve the problem here. Just hear me out.
All right.
Why not take 4 forwards? If you got this many guys who you potentially like, why not, especially when you got so many versatile players, midfielders who can do a couple jobs, wingers that can do a couple jobs, outside backs that can do a couple jobs, center backs who can play outside back. When you have that much versatility in this roster, why not take 4 forwards, especially, Herc, thinking back to what happened at the World Cup when you had an injury and you're left with Jesus Ferreira for the knockout round games as kind of your only option there. As the number 9, especially when I think if we're being honest about guys who could start for the U.S., I know Ricardo Pepi's good, and I know that Greg Berhalter seems to have some confidence and faith in him, but he started 1 game all year. Do you see him as a realistic option to start here in Nations League?
Now, I don't know with Greg Berhalter anymore because it depends on the profile of the team that he's playing against. That's what he manages his 9s for. I agree with you, Seb, and to strengthen your argument, 3 of these 4 9s, 3 of those guys, whether it's Josh Sargent, Folarin Balogun, or Haji Wright in this case, have all played winger at some point this season. So talk about versatility. There's no need to take a 3rd goalkeeper in my eyes. I'm with you on this one. You got to go with players who you think could, one, be competitive and somewhat hot or stay hot, and all 4 have proven that this season. I don't think that's a crazy shout at all.
All right, I know last week we promised you an interview with Haji Wright. We're going to conduct that interview tomorrow, so we'll bring it to you soon here on Futbol Americas. My best weekend, Herc, goes to Weston McKennie, who had a couple of assists for Juventus in a 2-2 draw against Atalanta. I mean, what more can you say about what Weston McKennie is doing right now? It's his first game back from an injury. Remember the shoulder injury. This guy, whenever he gets hurt, I mean, I don't know what they're feeding him, but it seems like he's immediately healed and immediately contributing. The 2 assists here are very different, but both very impressive. The first one is just a sensational pass, picking out Chiesa. That's number 10 string puller stuff. The second one is the brains, right? That's the knack. Lays it in off his chest for the assist. And if you look at the total overall productivity, Herc, it is very impressive. He now has 7 assists in league play. That's tied for second in Serie A. A couple months ago, the conversation around Weston McKennie was, look at what he's done. Juventus didn't have a use for him, and he's got a role within the team. We got to change that conversation now to this guy is one of the best midfielders, or at least in the conversation for best midfielders in a top 5 league, and that's such a rare thing to say, Herc, about an American. And people can come at me, and there are people who are more Serie A experts than me on this, but he's one of the best midfielders on one of the best teams in the league. He's producing from a role where, by the way, he's not some free-flying number 10. He's got a lot of defensive responsibilities here, and he's got 7 assists for Juventus. I cannot say enough about Weston McKennie, Herc, and if you would have told me that a player who a couple years ago I hammered for walking out on his team in Nashville during World Cup qualifying would be able to have this kind of turnaround at a club like Juventus, I would have laughed at you. But kudos for him to proving me and others wrong in a major way.
I mean, you, Landon Donovan, Taylor Twellman wanted him off the U.S. men's national team at one point, you know? That's how heavy the criticism on Weston McKennie was. And the narrative for Weston McKennie was he's a guy that's very energetic. He's a guy that's contagious to his teammate. And he gets on the end of things in the final third. This is a whole nother level to his game. Now, I don't know if I'll go as far as saying he's one of the best midfielders in the world. You know, in a top 5 league, I don't think I'd go that far. But you're making a compelling case for a guy that's added this layer to his game. He's very silky in the final third now. I mean, I think it was 10 days ago we had this very same exercise of, you know, best weekend abroad, and he had 2 assists, one of them this one right here, but he separated his shoulder, and I gave him best weekend, and we had a serious discussion. Well, he's injured, and I said he heals quickly. He's done it before. He will be back, and here we are. That's been his season in a nutshell for a guy that was deemed not good enough or not important enough, or not useful to go on a USA preseason tour to all of a sudden being one of the more consistent players that Maxi Allegri has. It's been a ridiculous turnaround from his time at Leeds.
Yep, doing it in Serie A, and I wouldn't be surprised if he brings some of that to CONCACAF here for the Nations League.